My knuckles were bleeding before I even realized I'd been pounding on the door for 20 minutes. The white paint was smeared red now. My wedding ring clinked against the frosted glass with each desperate hit, but nobody came. Inside my house, the house George built with his own hands over 37 summers, my daughter-in-law Victoria poured herself tea. My tea. From the pot I'd brewed at 4 p.m., back when I still thought I lived here. "Michael," my voice cracked in the December air. "Michael, please." Through the window, I could see him. My son. My baby boy who I'd rocked through colic and walked through heartbreak and put through college working double shifts at the diner. He turned his back to me. Just turned. Like I was a solicitor. Like I was someone selling something he didn't want. The cold bit through my thin cardigan, the blue one George always said matched my eyes. I'd only stepped outside to put the recycling bins out. 30 seconds, that's all it was supposed to be. I didn't even grab my coat. "This is my house!" I screamed, slamming both palms against the door. "I raised you in this house!" Victoria looked up then. Right at me. And she smiled. Not a polite smile. Not an uncomfortable smile. A victor's smile. She walked to the window, my kitchen window, where I'd watched 3 generations of robins build nests, and she mouthed 2 words. "Not anymore." My breath came out in white clouds. The thermometer on the porch read 28 degrees. My medication was sitting right there on the counter, the blood pressure pills I needed to take at 8 p.m. It was 8:47. I could see my phone too. The screen lit up, probably my sister Joan calling to confirm our coffee date tomorrow. The phone sat right next to my reading glasses, my crossword puzzle, the life I'd been living just an hour ago. "You can't do this," I whispered, pressing my forehead against the cold glass. "You can't just—" But they already had. Victoria set down her teacup, my favorite one, the one with the chipped handle that George had broken and glued back together in 1987, and walked to the counter. She picked up a stack of papers. My stomach dropped. Even through the frost and the tears freezing on my cheeks, I recognized those papers. The property deed? "No," I breathed. "No, no, no." 6 months ago, Michael had sat at my kitchen table with those same papers spread out. "It's just for estate planning, Mom," he'd said, his hand over mine, his voice so gentle. "If anything happens to you, we don't want the house stuck in probate. Victoria's dad went through that nightmare when her grandma passed. This way, everything's smooth. You'll still live here. Nothing changes. Nothing changes." I'd signed it. Signed my house, George's house, our life's work over to my only son, because I trusted him, because he was my blood, because I was a fool. Victoria held the deed up to the window now, making sure I could see it, making sure I understood. "This is my house now," she called through the glass, her voice muffled but clear enough. "My name, my rules, and outsiders don't get to stay." "Michael!" I pounded again, but my hands were so cold I could barely feel them. "Michael, you tell her this is wrong." He finally looked at me, just for a second. And the guilt in his eyes, the shame it told me everything, he knew. He knew exactly what was happening, and he was letting it happen anyway. "She's your mother," I heard myself shriek, some primal thing taking over. "I'm your mother." But he just shook his head and walked out of the kitchen, disappeared into the living room where I could see the TV flickering. The same TV George and I had saved up for 3 Christmases to buy. My legs gave out. I slid down the door and landed hard on the concrete porch. The cold seeped through my slacks immediately. The recycling bin I'd dragged out lay on its side, empty soup cans scattered across the driveway. This morning, I'd made Michael his favorite breakfast. Blueberry pancakes, extra butter. He'd kissed my cheek and said, "Thanks, Mom, you're the best." 8 hours later, I was locked out in the freezing dark. How does that happen? How does your whole life turn inside out between breakfast and dinner? I tried to stand, but my knees wouldn't cooperate. 72 years old, and my body was finally giving me the memo that I wasn't young anymore, wasn't strong anymore, wasn't valuable anymore. An outsider, she'd called me. In my own home. I wrapped my arms around myself, tucking my hands under my armpits for warmth. My teeth started chattering. The porch light, the one with the sensor George installed in 2003, clicked off, plunging me into darkness. They'd turned it off manually. From inside, a sob tore out of my throat before I could stop it. Then another. And then I was crying so hard I couldn't breathe, couldn't think, couldn't do anything but rock back and forth on my own front porch like a stranger. That's when I heard it. Victoria's laugh. Sharp, triumphant, carrying through the walls like a knife. I looked up, wiping my eyes with my freezing fingers. Through the window, I could see her in the living room now. She was showing Michael something, pointing to it, laughing. The property deed? She held it up, right there in my living room under the lamp George's mother had given us as a wedding present. And she was laughing. Michael didn't laugh. But he didn't stop her either. And somehow, that was worse. I couldn't feel my feet anymore. That's what finally got me moving. The numbness creeping up from my toes, that dangerous kind of cold that doesn't hurt, and that's how you know it's bad. I stumbled down the porch steps, catching myself on the railing. The Chen house next door was dark, completely dark. Please, I thought. Please let someone be home. I half ran, half staggered across the frozen grass. Our houses were close enough that Mrs. Chen and I had shared morning coffee over the fence for 15 years. Close enough that she'd held my hand at George's funeral and said, "You call me, any time, day or night." I pressed the doorbell. Nothing. Pressed it again. Held it down. The porch light stayed dark. "Mrs. Chen!" I pounded on her door, gentler than I'd pounded on my own. My knuckles screamed in protest. "Mrs. Chen, please, it's Eleanor from next door." Silence. She was 84. Took her hearing aids out every night at 8 p.m. sharp. She'd told me that 100 times. "Can't sleep with those things buzzing," she'd say. 8 p.m. I looked at my bare wrist where my watch should have been. Left it on the kitchen counter, but it had to be past 9 by now, maybe later. She couldn't hear me. Nobody could hear me. I stood there on her dark porch, my breath coming in short gasps that turned to white clouds. My wedding ring caught the moonlight as I wrapped my arms around myself, trying to trap any warmth left in my body. George had put this ring on my finger 51 years ago, 22 years old, both of us, thinking we had forever. We'd gotten 33 years. Not forever, but it had felt like it. "I don't know what to do," I whispered to the empty air. To George, maybe. To God. To anyone who might be listening. I don't know what to do. My sister Joan lived in Riverside. 40 minutes on a good day. She'd come get me in a heartbeat if I could call her. If I had my phone. If I had anything except the clothes on my back and a pair of house slippers that were now soaked through. I was trapped in my own front yard like a prisoner. The thought made me laugh, a broken, horrible sound that scared even me. Then I remembered the shed. George's shed, tucked in the back corner of the yard. He'd spent every Saturday morning out there, tinkering with something. My thinking space, he'd called it. I hadn't been inside since he died. Couldn't bear to. But tonight, I didn't have a choice. I made my way around the side of the house, past the rose bushes I'd planted when Michael was born. They were dormant now, skeletal branches reaching up like hands. The shed door stuck, it always stuck, but I yanked hard, and it gave way with a groan. The smell hit me first. Motor oil, sawdust, that specific scent of old wood and metal that was George. I stood in the doorway, frozen for a different reason now. His jacket still hung on the hook by the door. His red flannel jacket with the torn elbow I'd meant to patch. Just hanging there like he might come back for it any minute. Like the last 2 years had been a bad dream and he was still here, still alive, still the man who'd promised to take care of me until death do us part. He'd kept that promise. I was the one left behind. I pulled the door shut and sank onto an overturned crate. George's tools hung on the pegboard, each one outlined in shadow from the single window. He'd traced them in marker the way things should be, he'd said. Everything in its place. Everything except me. The cold was different in here. Still brutal, but at least the wind couldn't reach me. I found an old moving blanket, musty and probably full of spiders, and wrapped it around my shoulders. That's when the memories started. Victoria's voice, 6 months ago. You know, Mom, you're getting older. Maybe it's time to think about your options. 3 months ago, over Sunday dinner. It's just you take up a lot of space. The house feels crowded. Last month. Michael and I need our privacy. It's inconvenient having you here all the time. All the time. I lived there. But every comment had been wrapped in concern. In sweetness. We just worry about you, Mom. What if you fall? What if something happens when we're not home? And I'd believed her. Believed she cared. The way she'd looked at me tonight, though, that smile, that wasn't concern. That was victory. I pulled the blanket tighter, my body shaking so hard my teeth rattled. How long had she been planning this? How many of those sweet smiles had been fake? How many times had Michael known what she was thinking? What they were both thinking and said nothing? My son. My baby. I'd given him everything. Everything. George and I had gone without so Michael could have new shoes, could go on school trips, could go to college. We'd eaten rice and beans for months to afford his first car. And this was how he repaid me. By standing silent while his wife threw me out in the cold. I must have dozed off, because the next thing I knew, my neck was cramping and frost had formed on the shed's single window. The cold had settled into my bones, a deep ache that felt permanent. Then I heard it. Footsteps. Crunching through the snow. My heart leaped. Michael. He'd come to his senses. He was coming to apologize, to bring me inside, to... But the footsteps weren't coming toward the shed. They were heading to the driveway. I pressed my face against the frosted window, squinting through the ice crystals. Victoria. Walking across my front yard in her designer coat, the one Michael bought her for Christmas last year, while I got a drugstore candle. And she was carrying a suitcase. Victoria wasn't just carrying a suitcase. She was carrying 3. I watched through the shed window as she popped the trunk of my car, my Honda Accord, the one George bought me for our 40th anniversary with the heated seats he knew I needed for my back. She was loading her luggage into my car. No, I breathed, my breath fogging the frozen glass. No, you don't get to. But she did. She was doing it right now. Michael came out next, hauling 2 more bags. Designer bags. The expensive kind with little gold logos that cost more than my monthly grocery budget. They were leaving. Not just locking me out. Not just stealing my house. They were leaving. I pressed closer to the window, ignoring the cold burning my cheek. Michael's face was tight, guilty. He kept glancing back at the house, at the dark shed where I was hiding, though he couldn't possibly see me. Could he? Did some part of him know his mother was 30 feet away, freezing in a garden shed while he packed for vacation? That's it, Victoria said, her voice carrying in the cold night air. Everything else can stay. Are you sure we should? Michael started. Should what? Victoria slammed the trunk. She signed the papers. The house is ours. What's she going to do about it? Michael said nothing. Of course he didn't. They climbed into my car, Victoria in the driver's seat, because apparently she owned that too now, and I thought they were leaving, just driving away and leaving me here to freeze. But the car didn't move. Victoria left it running, warming up. And Michael walked back toward the house. No, not toward the house. Toward the garage. My heart stopped. The garage door groaned open, that familiar sound I'd heard 10,000 times, but this time it felt different, ominous. Michael disappeared inside. I couldn't see what he was doing. The angle was wrong, the shadows too deep, but I could hear things moving, scraping, something heavy being dragged. Then he emerged, carrying a for sale sign, the kind real estate agents plant in front yards. Red and white, Coldwell Banker printed across the top in cheerful letters. My legs went numb. Not from cold this time. From shock. No, I whispered. Then louder. No, no, you can't. But I was talking to myself in an empty shed, and Michael was carrying that sign across my front lawn like it was the most normal thing in the world. He propped it against the garage door, ready to be installed, ready to tell the whole neighborhood that this house, George's house, our life was for sale. How long had they been planning this? The deed transfer was 6 months ago. Had they bought that sign then? Had they been counting down the days until they could throw me out and cash in? I grabbed George's old workbench to steady myself. My hand landed on something cold. Metal. His cell phone. George's ancient flip phone that he'd refused to upgrade. "Works just fine," he'd say whenever I suggested something newer. It had been sitting here for 2 years, gathering dust next to a jar of rusty screws. My hands shook as I picked it up. Dead battery, of course. But George kept everything. Every cord, every charger, every instruction manual from 1987. If his car charger was anywhere, it would be here. I started pulling open drawers, my frozen fingers barely working. Loose batteries, ancient receipts, a birthday card I'd given him in 2019. "To my darling George, you're still the one." My vision blurred. Not now. I couldn't fall apart now. Third drawer, bottom left, tangled in a mess of extension cords. The car charger. "Thank you," I whispered. To George, to fate, to whatever mercy still existed in this nightmare. My car was running in the driveway. If I could just plug this in. But Victoria and Michael were still out there. I cracked the shed door open an inch. Cold air rushed in, but I barely felt it anymore. Adrenaline was doing strange things to my body. They were standing by the car, arguing. Victoria's voice sharp, Michael's low and defensive. 3 weeks, Victoria was saying. "The sale closes in 3 weeks. Everything's already arranged." "But where will she—" "There's a state facility in Lancaster. She'll be fine." A state facility. My stomach turned to ice. She didn't just want my house, she wanted me gone. Completely gone. Locked away in some nursing home while they sold everything George and I had built. "Once we're in Florida," Victoria continued, louder now, like she wanted the whole street to hear, "she'll have no choice but to go to that state facility. The sale closes in 3 weeks. Florida. They were moving to Florida. With my money? My house? My life? Michael said something I couldn't hear. Victoria laughed that same sharp, triumphant laugh from earlier. Then they got in the car. My car. And drove away. The taillights disappeared around the corner, and suddenly the night was silent again. Just me and the wind and the for sale sign leaning against my garage like a tombstone. I ran. Stumbled, really, my numb feet barely cooperating, but I made it to my car. No, to where my car had been. The driveway was empty except for oil stains and tire tracks in the frost. They'd taken my car, too. Of course they had. I stood there in the empty, but they'd made one mistake. They'd left me George's phone. And George, bless him, had kept every important number written in the address book in his glove compartment. But he'd also programmed 3 numbers into this phone's memory. Mine, Jones, and his lawyer. George's estate lawyer. The woman who'd helped us write our wills, who'd walked me through everything after he died. Who'd raised an eyebrow when Michael insisted on the deed transfer, but had processed it because I'd sworn I wanted it. What was her name? I sank down on the cold driveway, trying to remember. The phone felt like a brick in my frozen hand. I needed to charge it, needed to call someone, needed to— Patricia. Patricia Kim. And George had given me her emergency number. Just in case, he'd said. "If anyone ever makes you feel pressured, you call her. Promise me." I'd promised. I just never thought anyone would be our son. I crawled back to the shed, every movement agony. Found an outlet behind the workbench. George had wired electricity out here for his power tools. Plugged in the phone, and waited. The screen stayed black. 1 minute, 2, 5. Then, finally, a flicker. A dim backlight. The battery icon showing 1%. It would have to be enough. My hands shook as I scrolled through the saved contacts. There were only 3. Mine, Jones, and P. Kim, emergency. I pressed call before I could lose my nerve. It rang once. Twice. 3 times. Please, I thought. Please, please, please. Hello? A woman's voice. Alert, sharp, like it wasn't 4 a.m. like she'd been waiting for this call. "Patricia?" My voice cracked. "Patricia, this is Eleanor. Eleanor Chen, George's wife. I need help. Eleanor." Her voice changed instantly. Urgent. "Eleanor, I've been trying to reach you for 3 days." My blood went cold. "What?" "That deed transfer Michael filed?" Papers rustling in the background. "I found something very wrong with it." "What do you mean, wrong with it?" My voice came out as a whisper. The phone battery blinked at me 2% now, but barely holding. "I mean it's fraudulent." Patricia's voice was steel. "Eleanor, where are you right now? Are you safe?" "Safe." I almost laughed. "I'm in my garden shed," I said. "They locked me out. Victoria and Michael. They took my car. They're going to Florida. There's a for sale sign in my garage, and—" "Stop!" Patricia's tone shifted. "Listen to me carefully. How long has it been since you've been inside?" 3 hours. Maybe 4. I don't. Are you injured? Do you need an ambulance?" "No, I'm cold. I'm so cold and I don't understand what's happening." "I'm coming to get you." I heard a car door slam on her end, an engine starting. "I'm 20 minutes away. Can you hold on for 20 minutes? 20 minutes. An eternity and a heartbeat all at once. "The phone," I said, watching the battery flicker. "It's dying. It's George's old phone and—" "Then listen fast." Patricia's voice went rapid fire. 3 days ago, Michael came to my office, alone, said you wanted to refinance the house. Had paperwork with your signature. I never. I know, because I compared it to your real signature from George's estate documents. It's a forgery, a good one, but a forgery." The shed spun around me. "He forged my signature? Not just on refinancing papers, on a power of attorney, medical directives, everything he'd need to control your assets and make decisions for you." My free hand clutched George's jacket, the flannel rough under my frozen fingers. "Why?" The word barely made it out. "Why would he—" "The house is worth $840,000, Eleanor. Your savings, George's life insurance, the property you're worth over $1 million on paper. $1 million. George and I had never talked in those terms. We just lived, just worked, just saved what we could. We'd never been rich. But I guess we had been. And Victoria had known it. The deed transfer I notarized 6 months ago," Patricia continued. "That one was legitimate. You signed it in my office, remember? But these new documents—" "Wait." My brain struggled to catch up. "You notarized the deed. You were there." "Yes. So Michael legally owns my house." Silence on the other end. That's when I knew. "He legally owns it," I said again flatly. "The house is his. Eleanor, they can kick me out. They can sell it. They can do whatever they want." "Not exactly." Patricia's voice took on an edge. "The deed transfer gave Michael ownership, yes. But it didn't terminate your life estate." "My what?" "Your right to live there until you die. George's will established that. When we transferred the deed to Michael, that life estate transferred with it. Michael owns the house, but he can't evict you. Legally, you have the right to remain in that home for the rest of your life." The phone blinked. 1%. "But they locked me out," I said. "They already—" "Which is why I'm calling the police." Keys clicking in the background. "What Michael and Victoria did tonight, that's elder abuse, illegal eviction. And combined with the forged documents, it's fraud. Elder abuse." The words made me feel small, helpless, like a victim, like an outsider. "I don't want to get him in trouble," I heard myself say. "He's my son. He's all I—" "Eleanor," Patricia's voice gentled. "He locked his 72-year-old mother outside in 20-degree weather without her medication or her phone. He forged legal documents to steal your money. And right now, he's driving to Florida to wait out the sale of your house so he can put you in a state facility." Put that way, it sounded worse. It sounded like exactly what it was. "I don't understand," I whispered. "When did he become this person? When did I—" The phone went black. Dead. No! I pressed buttons frantically. Nothing. No, 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 Patricia! Patricia! Silence. I was alone again. I don't know how long I sat there. Could have been 5 minutes. Could have been 50. Time felt broken, stretched thin like taffy. George's jacket smelled like him, like Old Spice and sawdust and Sunday mornings. I don't know what to do, I told him, told the empty shed. I don't know what to do without you. George would have known. George would have fixed this somehow. Would have stood up to Michael. Would have seen through Victoria's smile. George would have protected me. But George was gone. And I was alone in a shed, waiting for a lawyer I barely remembered to save me from my own son. Headlights swept across the shed window. I scrambled up, hope flaring in my chest. Patricia, it had to be. But the car that pulled into the driveway wasn't Patricia's. It was mine. My Honda Accord. Victoria and Michael were back. I pressed myself against the wall, heart hammering. What were they doing back? They'd left. They were supposed to be gone. Car doors slammed. Told you we forgot them. Victoria's voice, irritated. Just grab them and let's go. I want to be on the road before dawn. I still think we should check on her, Michael said. My breath caught. Check on her? Victoria's laugh was acid. She's probably at a neighbor's by now, or wandering the streets. Either way, not our problem. Footsteps on the porch. The front door opening. They were inside my house again, moving around, searching for something they'd forgotten. I could run, could make it to the street while they were inside, could flag down a car, knock on doors, scream until someone... The shed door flew open. I screamed. Michael stood in the doorway, a flashlight in his hand. We stared at each other. His face was haggard, older than I'd ever seen it. For a moment, just a moment, he looked like the boy who used to crawl into bed with George and me during thunderstorms. Mom, he said quietly. Just that, just Mom. Like he hadn't locked me out. Like he hadn't stolen my house and my car and my life. Like he was still my son. You were in here the whole time, he said. I couldn't speak. Could barely breathe. He took a step inside. I took a step back. Don't, I whispered. Don't come near me. Something crumbled in his expression. Mom, Michael? Victoria's voice from the driveway. Michael, did you find them? We need to go. His jaw tightened. And I watched it happen. Watched him make the choice. Between me and her. Between his mother and his wife. Between right and wrong. She's in the shed, he called over his shoulder. Victoria appeared behind him, her face sharp in the flashlight beam. When she saw me cowering in the corner with George's jacket clutched to my chest like a child with a security blanket, she smiled. Well, she said, isn't this pathetic? That's when I heard the sirens. The sirens were getting closer. Victoria's smile vanished. What did you do? She spun on Michael, her voice sharp as broken glass. What did you do? I didn't. Michael's face went white. I didn't do anything. But I had. Or rather, Patricia had. The sirens turned onto our street, red and blue lights painting the shed walls in frantic color. You called the police? Victoria's eyes snapped to me. You stupid old woman, you called the... Step away from her. Patricia's voice cut through the night like a blade. She stood in the driveway, illuminated by the headlights of her car. Behind her, 2 police cruisers pulled up to the curb. 4 officers emerged, hands resting casually on their belts. Victoria's face cycled through shock, rage, and fear in the span of 3 seconds. This is a family matter, she said, her voice dripping with fake concern. Eleanor's confused. She's been having episodes. I'm not confused. My voice came out stronger than I expected, and I haven't had any episodes. I stepped out of the shed into the driveway. My legs shook, my whole body shook, but I walked forward anyway. Toward the light, toward Patricia, toward the police who were supposed to protect people like me. Mrs. Chen. One of the officers approached a woman, maybe 40, with kind eyes. I'm Officer Rodriguez. Are you injured? Do you need medical attention? I need my house back, I said. Michael flinched like I'd slapped him. Ma'am, "We're going to need everyone to remain calm," Officer Rodriguez said. She looked at Michael and Victoria. "Can someone explain what's happening here?" "My mother-in-law has dementia," Victoria said smoothly. Too smoothly, like she'd rehearsed this. "She gets confused, wanders. We've been looking for her for hours." "I don't have dementia." I held up my bleeding knuckles. "I was locked out of my own house for 4 hours in 28-degree weather." Officer Rodriguez's expression hardened. "Is that true?" she asked Michael. My son opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. It's complicated. It's actually very simple." Patricia stepped forward, a folder tucked under her arm. "I'm Patricia Kim, Mrs. Chen's attorney. 3 days ago, Michael Chen came to my office with documents bearing his mother's signature documents that would give him power of attorney and allow him to refinance this property." She pulled papers from the folder, held them up. "These documents are forgeries." The words hung in the cold air. Michael's face crumbled. No, that's not." I compared the signatures to Mrs. Chen's authentic signature from documents she signed in my presence. Patricia continued, relentless. "The forgeries are good, professional even, but they're fake." "That's insane!" Victoria's voice climbed an octave. "We would never." "There's more." Patricia pulled out another sheet. "This property deed was legitimately transferred to Michael Chen 6 months ago. However, the transfer did not terminate Mrs. Chen's life estate, her legal right to occupy this home until her death. What occurred tonight constitutes illegal eviction and elder abuse." Officer Rodriguez turned to her partner. "Bill, call for backup and get a supervisor here." "This is ridiculous," Victoria said, but her voice wavered now. "We own this house. We have every right to—" "You have no right to evict the life estate holder," Patricia said, "and you certainly have no right to forge legal documents." "We didn't forge anything," Victoria shrieked. "Then you won't mind coming to the station to answer some questions," Officer Rodriguez said. That's when Victoria ran. Just bolted. Straight across the lawn toward my car, keys already in her hand. She didn't make it 5 feet before the second officer caught her. "Let go of me! Let go, Michael! Tell them!" But Michael wasn't looking at her. He was looking at me. "Mom," he said. Just that one word, like it contained everything else he couldn't say. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. I didn't know it would go this far. How did we get here?" "Mrs. Chen, is there someone we can call for you?" Officer Rodriguez asked gently. "Family? Friends?" "My sister," I said. "Joan. Her number's in my phone, but—" "It's inside," Michael said quietly. "On the kitchen counter." Officer Rodriguez looked at him. "You're going to unlock that door, and you're going to let your mother inside her own home. Understood?" Michael nodded. He walked to the front door like a man heading to his execution. His hands shook as he turned the key, my key, the one I'd used 10,000 times. The lock clicked. The door swung open. Warm air rushed out, carrying the smell of the tea I'd brewed a lifetime ago. I stood on the threshold, my threshold. The threshold George had carried me over in 1974, both of us laughing, both of us so young and stupid and in love. "It's okay," Officer Rodriguez said softly. "You can go in." I stepped inside. The house was exactly as I'd left it. My reading glasses on the side table, my crossword puzzle half finished, the TV still flickering with whatever show Michael had been watching while I froze outside. My phone sat on the kitchen counter, right where I'd left it. 17 missed calls, all from Joan. I picked it up with trembling hands and walked to the living room window. From here, I could see everything. The police cars, Patricia talking to the officers, Victoria in handcuffs in the back of a cruiser, her face twisted with rage, and Michael, standing in the driveway, hands behind his back, while an officer read him his rights. "You have the right to remain silent." My son, my baby boy, in handcuffs. I should have felt victorious, should have felt satisfied that justice was being served. Instead, I just felt hollow. I walked to the thermostat, past the wedding photo of George and me, past the school pictures of Michael at every age, past 40 years of memories embedded in these walls, and turned up the heat. My house. My rules. My second chance. The furnace kicked on with a familiar rumble. Warm air began flowing through the vents. My body started thawing, inch by painful inch. Through the window, I watched them put Michael in the second police car. He looked back at the house at me one last time. And I wondered, when exactly did I become an outsider in his heart? Was it when he met Victoria? When they got married? When he realized I was getting older and would need help someday? Or had it been earlier? Had I spoiled him too much? Protected him too much? Had George and I raised a man who thought love was something you could take without giving back? I didn't know. I might never know. Patricia came inside a few minutes later, a locksmith trailing behind her. "We're changing the locks," she said. "Tonight. Right now. And tomorrow, we're filing a restraining order." I nodded numbly. "Eleanor." Patricia touched my arm gently. "You did the right thing." "Did I?" My voice broke. "He's my son." "And you're his mother." Patricia's eyes were fierce. "You deserved better than this. You deserved so much better." The locksmith worked quickly, efficiently. The old locks came out. New ones went in. Patricia pressed 3 shiny keys into my palm. "One for you, one for your sister, one for me, if you'll trust me with it." I closed my fingers around them. They were warm from her hand. Warm like the house. Warm like the life I'd almost lost. Officer Rodriguez returned as the locksmith packed up. "Mrs. Chen, Michael and Victoria are being held." "I tried calling," she sobbed. "I tried and—" "I know," I said. "I know." She took me home, my home, and made me tea in my kitchen while Patricia went over the legal situation. The house was still mine, would always be mine. The deed might have Michael's name, but the life estate was ironclad. The forged documents would be evidence. Victoria might face serious charges. Michael might too, depending on what he knew and when he knew it. And me? I sat at my kitchen table, wrapped in George's old bathrobe I'd retrieved from my bedroom. The sun was rising outside my window, painting my roses gold. "What happens now?" I asked. Patricia looked at me for a long moment. "Now," she said, "you live. You take back your life. You remember that you're not an outsider, you never were. This is your home. And nobody, not Michael, not Victoria, not anyone gets to take that from you." I looked around the kitchen, at the chipped teacup Victoria had used, at the property deed they'd waved in my face, at the life they'd tried to steal. And then I looked at Joan, holding my hand across the table. At Patricia, who'd driven through the night to save me. At the sunrise, painting everything new. "Okay," I whispered. And for the first time in 4 hours, in 4 months, in maybe the whole 2 years since George died, I believed it.